Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and this is a particle tutorial about how to create smoke or clouds. And I want to show you how you can create such an effect like this with an with an object as an emitter. So this is going to be just a 3D object like this one. And what we want to do is we want to take this one and which has maybe some cloudish look, and what we want to do is we want to create a smoke particle for our cloud effect, and then we want to go over and create that smoky cloudy effect around that cloud itself, and using this one as a mesh emitter. So let's get started with Gimp. If you don't like to use Gimp, you can also use Photoshop for this one. It's going to be the same workflow as we are going to create that stuff with Gimp itself. So what we do is we create a new image with a size of 1920 by 1080 and press OK with a white background. Then what we want to do is we go to filter and go down to render, and there is clouds, and what we take is difference clouds. Those difference clouds may start with some basic values of a detail of 1, and in here it should be 4 and 4 if you are just opening this one. So it will be very blurry. So what we need is at least 12 detail, or maybe more. Maybe 15 is a bit too much, but can also be used at this, and maybe a size of 8 by 8. And then we press OK when we are done with that. If you are unhappy with the previous, just create a new seed, and this will randomly recreate everything, or you can also go over and randomize this on clicking that button. When we are done with that setting, then we are going to press OK. Again, this is the same workflow as you do in Photoshop, so you feel free to use whatever you want. And now we are going to take the colors and go to levels. In Photoshop it's going to be about the same, but you have to go to, I believe, modify and then levels. So what you can see is that input level curve in here. So what we do is we increase white, so we drag this one to the left, and we increase black also, so we drag this one to the right. What we get is some cloudy effect in here. So what we can do is we can add more and more black and get rid of grays and all the other things by going to the left. What we need is some kind of island cloud, I believe I would say like this, which could be our particle for the cloud itself. We need some bit light, so we have something to light inside, so we fiddle around with that value used in here. There is no 100% value, I can tell you. You need to fiddle around with that. So what you need is a bit of white, a bit of smoky area, like several different gray scales, and of course a black background. If you make it too dark but more cloudish, then you will later on may have the problem that the clouds are not looking very good. So you go over and increase a bit to the outside, so you have some differences inside. The next thing is, now we need to check. First we press OK when we are happy with the result, and the next one is we need a small island we can use as our smoke particle. I believe the rounder the better, but if you need some spikes or anything else on it, you can also use that. So what you do is, no matter how your sheet now is going to look, make sure that you find something in detail which could be your cloud particle later on. Again, it needs to be a bit roundish, maybe like this island in here. Don't worry about that snaps or that parts in the middle. We will go over and manipulate them later on. If you don't find anything which is able to fit your needs, then you can easily go over and recreate the whole process once again. Use another seed and take the next one until you are happy with the result. I don't want to do that since it can take a while before we have something we can actually use for this. So I will go over and let's see what I can take. Maybe this one could be also great, or actually interesting. This is kind of roundish in here. This is kind of roundish, but there might be a bit of too less detail, or we can just take this one or this one. I believe I take this one. So what I do is I take that free select tool and go over and free select by point to point and go around the island I just want to have as my particle. Again, if you're later on unhappy with that, go over and recreate several until you have the best result for your particle system. So this is going to be my cloud particle. What I do is I press Ctrl C to copy the content. In Photoshop it's going to be a bit different. And what I want to do is I want to create a new image with a size of 512 by 512, which is going to be our particle size. What I also want to do is I want to press, when I have selected this one, Ctrl V, so I paste that part in here. Also I can go over and move that around. If it's not fitting, you will go over and rescale that one. So when you want to rescale that, press the scale button in here, select the form once, and then make sure that both are scaling the same size, and then go over and drag around until you're happy with the result and everything fits into the particle. Make sure that it's not hitting the outside, even if it could be possible to do so, but you have a bit more work with that. Okay, what we also want to do is, since we have a floating selection, we right click on that and say to new layer, and as you can see it already has a new layer on that spot. In the background area in here I'm gonna go and take the bucket tool, take the black color. If yours is not black, make sure it is. Go to the background and fill it with the bucket tool. Now as you can see, the particle has some hard edges on the sides. What I want to make sure is that I don't have that hard sides or hard edges in here. So I take the rubber, change the opacity to maybe 40% so it's not that hard, and take a very smooth and not hard pencil tool in here, or pencil brush. And then what we want to do is, when the size is okay, it should be around like that. Can also go over and scroll in a bit so it's seen better, or just resize it. As you can see, it's going to be pretty hard edge in here. So I go over and go to my pasted layer in here and start to rubber away the corners and the borders. So make some clicks in here, go over that edge several times until you see that it's going to be deleted or kind of deleted. Same for the other hard edges. You can also change a bit around and can paint a bit in the center if you are unhappy with something else in the clouds itself, and you can always go in and rubber stuff away if that is not what you want to have in your cloud. And the same for the other sides in here. Just quickly go over to that and manipulate the whole edges until they are looking way more or way better. If you don't like the details on the sides or that small floating parts in here, this could also later on be a bit tricky to implement or actually to work with. Make sure that you get rid of that if you don't want that to have. Okay, that's pretty much it. We could also go in and blur the corner or the outer edge completely. So take that that blur tool, take a very soft brush and not too big size, and opacity of 100% should be okay. And then go and take all that hard edges and blur them away a bit. So as you can see, we'll have a nice grayscale on the outer rim or on the outer border of the complete particle later on. This can later on also be a smoke particle, so make sure you make it properly, and again create several of how many you need and want later on. Just make sure that the corners and the edges and all the other things are a bit blurred out, so it's easier and of course looks way better later on when we are going to animate them or actually import them into Unity. So just the rest in here, also the other side a bit. Do several clicks and or just paint over several times until everything is blurred, specifically for all that parts we don't have any access later on. Okay, so this is going to be my little cloud particle. So what I need to do is I go to File, Export to. And since I have some or made some testings already with that, I need to rename mine to maybe Cloud 004 and press Export. Don't forget to go to select File Type and scroll down if you haven't already and select PNG image. And that's it. Press on the Export button. And now you can see the compression level can be high or low depending on the details. Basically, I choose the middle one of 5, and this should be okay for our current particle in here. So let's get back to Unity and import that. Also, let's get rid of the cloud system I already created. So this is going to be the mesh which is emitting later on my particle system. So this is my base. Also, later on when you don't want to see any mesh in your scene, you can always go over and disable the mesh render component, but you don't need to. Okay, so what we do is we right click on that and create a new particle system. As you can see, it has nothing on it basically. Just some floating away particles. Since I haven't already imported my cloud, I go over and do that pretty quick. So I go into my folder where my cloud is located and drag this into my textures folder in here, so I can make use of it. You don't have to do anything in here except you later on go for mobile. You might want to go over to change this from compressed to true color to have some more details in it. But you decide what you need and like later on. Okay, then we want to create a new material. I already have 2 different materials. I want to create a new one for the next, or for my current cloud, which is, whoops, I need to rename that once again, for cloud 0, let's say 4. Since my texture also is called cloud 04, and what I go is I drag in cloud 04 in the albedo channel, and we will have a black image with our cloud on it. Now we go to shader, but instead of particle shader additive, we are going to using the mobile additive. Since this is only rendered in front of meshes, so make sure you use particles in the mobiles section. So now you can see it is additive, so that means it blends in or blends over all the white elements and make them like blurry. Or not blurry, but they will blend into each other and make that brighter, that white parts. So we can also go over and already drag cloud 04 onto the particle system itself. So what it will do, it will create at first just usual cloud parts. So for now, we will go over and change some things then here. At first I want the duration only to be 2. Again, this is what you need to take care of later on. I also want to make sure that I pre-warm that, so it will already have a pre-warmed thingy. So the particles will already be played before actually the game starts, so there will be no delay in between, or shouldn't be any delay. I want to start the lifetime or the lifetime of 1, so it's not long alive at first. Maybe I go over and change it to 2 at first. And the starting speed needs to be very, very low, so we start to take a 0.01 for the moment. Also, the start size is going to be a bit too big in my opinion, so, and also I want to randomize it, so I go to random between 2 constants and say, okay, the first one, what I want is maybe 0.5 or 0.3. and the second one 0.5. You can later on always go in and change that to your needs. But it seems that the clouds are pretty okayish for now. There's also the slowish speed in here, but I also want to have a random start rotation. So instead of having just one constant, I will change start rotation to random between two constants. And what I also want to do is I want to say between 0 and 360. If 360 doesn't look well, you can always go in and change it to maybe 100 or a minus 100 and 100. So, or maybe more, maybe less. Depends on how it is going to look. So maybe if minus 45 and 45 looks pretty decent. It might be, but it shouldn't. Okay, so the next thing is we can use or play around with the color. The more black is in, the more transparent the particles are going to be. So take care of that. Make sure that you use full colors in here, but for now we can just leave it white. If you want to make some tinting, like a bit blue for example, you can always go in and do so. So the edges of the cloud particles will tint in blue, but the middle will still will be white because of the additive shader. For now I leave everything white at the moment and we'll go to emission. So I want to, for now I want also set the maximum particles in that particle system to 100. So this is how you can limit the amount of particles. And maybe I want to have an emission rate of 25. I can always go in and change this stuff later on. If you are going to shape, you see that there currently is a cone active, but I don't like the cone. We want to have our mesh to be the emitter. So what we do is we go to mesh renderer. So the mesh renderer will make sure that we can take any mesh which has a mesh renderer component on it, depending or independently of if it's active or not. We can take any mesh we just have imported. If you only use mesh, then you will only get a small amount of stuff you can choose from, like a box, a cube, and something else. So, but this is not what I want. I want to have my specific cloud mesh in here, so I need to go and change that to mesh renderer. Next one is I can go and select a small dot and can, as you see, select the cloud I just created. And also it starts emitting directly from the vertexes. You can also use edge mode if you want to, or triangle mode. It's your decision, but basically edge mode should be pretty fine for this one. I don't want to use the mesh color, I just leave everything alone. And you can also go over and use a normal offset. That offset means it will start at an offset from away from the particular vertex. So wherever it has been spawned. So if you have a normal offset of 1, for example, you will see it will form the cloud outer part, but it will be 1 unit away from the original vertex where the particle has been on. So you can also take something smaller, like an offset of 0.01, so you might not have some weird effects later on, or you just keep it as 0 and it will grow and go into random directions, or actually the direction of the vertexes anyways. Okay, so the next one is we want to have that cloud particles fade in and fade out. So we go over to color over lifetime, open this one up and open the gradient editor, and we add 2 more flags in here, in the pretty much in the center or in the first and in the second part of it. Now we go over and select the first one, scroll down alpha to 0, and the second, the last one to 0.2. And now we have a nice blending in effect. So our particles are going to blend in over the time. and are looking pretty good so far. What I also want to make sure is that I don't resize any shadows with that, and I don't cast any shadows with that particle system. And the same maybe for your mesh itself too. You don't want to resize shadows if you don't like them, and cast shadows is going to be off too, or you can make it different, it doesn't really matter for our current project. So now you can easily play around with all that things in here, like checking again if the rotations are pretty good, if the sizes are too big. Maybe mine are a bit too big, so I might to reduce them a bit. And that's basically everything I wanted to cover. Now you can have your own cloud system in here with all that particles. You can also go over and rotate them over lifetime by a very small velocity, maybe of 3 or 5. And the longer the lifetime, the better the effect. So if you have a lifetime of 3, then everything will be or will look more filled. And also, as you can see here, it will look more filled. If you increase the speed to 0.03, for example, it will go out a bit more and looks more smoky. And if you want to have some ice effect or something like that, you can add a small amount of blue in the particles on the color itself, on the start color. And as you can see, the additive shader is going to work with or start around with all that white blend over effects in here. And you can basically take any color you want, maybe like a bit red, and so on and so forth. But make sure you don't use full colors, as you have seen it will destroy the effect on the additive shader. Also, if you go more into the gray area, as I already said before, you will get more transparent effects for smoke and stuff. And the more black it is, the less it will blend into each other and will more look like it's going to be a very cold stone or anything else. So also you can reduce the alpha itself by a bit, so it's basically the same, but you will keep the full color in here. And you can increase the alpha to basically get the same effect, but you can also take now advantage of the color and still make it a bit more transparent, so it's slightly seen, or basically as much seen as you need them to be. Thanks for watching the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thumbs this video up if you like it, and feel free to become my patron or donate by using PayPal to support me and my channel in the future. All links will be below in the description. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.